Hey guys, welcome to Quinian's Budget Crafts. If you guys want to see how I did the tower section here, you can click on the video up there. I've done this a few times. You literally just stick whatever random bricks you have and fill in the holes. So what are we building? Well, we need to do a gallows. But I don't want to do the gallows like this, with the cross section and a little trapdoor. Everybody and their mother's done that type gallows in YouTube. You'll find 100 of those videos. I'm going to do a different one. Bonus points if you know what movie it's from. So I'm just going to use some of these square dowels. You could use whatever kind of wood you like. These things are pretty cheap. They're maybe $2 or so for a pack of assorted sizes. They're a little too perfect though. So what I'm going to do is cut some wood grain into them. This X-Acto blade is old and the tip is broken off, which is actually perfect for this. Because if you tried dragging a super fine X-Acto across the wood like this, you'd break the tip off anyway. But really all you have to do is just drag it across several times and create some faux wood grain, kind of the same way you would with a pencil on foam. Basically the same idea. Once you've got that done, you can then figure out how high you're going to need your posts to be and the cross beams and stuff. I've got a mini here standing on a barrel, so that would give me a pretty good height reference. If you don't have a mini on a barrel, just basically double the height of your mini, or maybe a little bit less than that. Then hold your crossbeam up and double check it to the height of your mini, height of your wall, see what it looks right. There's no real set measurements here. It's a lot of, if it looks right, then it's right. Go ahead and line up your posts and transfer those marks all the way down, and then we can cut them off. You can cut them with whatever you got on hand. The dovetail saw seems to work pretty well. Also with this build, if you know what I'm doing, there is a central post that is just a little thicker and a little bit taller than the others. So I'll just use another dowel that's a little bit thicker and cut a little bit longer. You can paint these up whatever color you want to. I'm going to use nutmeg and just coat the entire thing. And it's a little bit bright, but that's okay because then I'm going to dunk these in my black wash. No need to get too fancy, you can literally just dunk them right in there. The wood grain cuts that I made on these didn't really show very well. I was hoping they'd show better than they did. If you wanted them to show, then cut them deeper or cut like a V notch out of them so that there's actually missing wood for the wash to settle in. But it's alright, I like the way they worked out anyway. Got some extra pieces of XPS here. I'm just laying out where I want my cross beams to be. Once I got that all figured out, I can then take my post and just sort of push it into the foam to make a little impression of where it's going to be so I can cut that section of foam out. You don't have to actually remove the foam. You can just cut the square out with your X-Acto and then shove it into the thing with your post. So last year I tried doing all of my Halloween stuff during the month of October. That didn't work out. I didn't have enough time to actually make anything. And people putting out their videos with Halloween related content in October was also not good because I didn't have time to do what they did. So this year, I'm starting my Halloween stuff now. That's why we did the gallows video. That way, I have time to get them done and the videos out, and then you guys have time to copy it, steal the idea, modify the idea, whatever you want to do. That way you can get your Halloween terrain done before Halloween. What I have going on here is a piece of ready board sitting on top of a piece of EPS. So as long as the ready board is cut, it'll just smash into the EPS. It'll smash all the way through if you wanted it to. But just go around and cut out the little outline of all of your pieces. Once you're done there, you can just put a little hot glue on there and smash it in. Shouldn't have to hold it for very long. These also don't need to be perfectly 90 degrees or anything. In fact, it's maybe a little bit better if they're not, because the entire build is meant to be kind of wonky, I guess. If you've seen the movie, you'll realize that this whole thing is pretty hasty. So not really built with the best planning in mind. For the cross beams, just hold them up there, put a mark, and cut them off at the mark. You may not get them cut exactly perfect, that'll be alright, you can adjust them as you go. Of course, don't forget to paint your cross pieces. Now when you go to glue these on, all you gotta do is put a little bit of hot glue on each end and put them in between the uprights. Just do one at a time, pick one side to start from and work your way around. That way if anything is too long or too short, you can adjust it. When I cut mine, I made sure to cut them a little too long, if anything. That way I can trim them down so I don't have to cut another one to fill one that's too small. Again, this doesn't really need to be perfect. If the posts end up getting pushed a little askew, it's totally fine. If you were trying to be more exact with it, I would definitely recommend measuring and planning accordingly, but I'm not, so here we go. The posts that go into the tower section here, you do the same thing. You just push it in to make an indent and then cut a little hole out. In this case, I actually am removing the foam because the post is so long I need room for it to get in there. And that tower is made of XPS, which is considerably more dense than EPS, so this has not got any kind of squish to it. So just work your way around, hot gluing them all in place. You don't have to worry about them being messy because we're going to cover that up. So in order to hide our glue mess and all of these very loose joints, we'll just do what Hollywood did. They hid all of their modern day metal hanger joints with a bunch of rope. It worked out pretty well. In this case, I'm using jute twine. You can get a 3-pack of it from the dollar store, and some tacky glue. Any kind of glue will work, doesn't really matter. You could use super glue if you want, but it sets up so fast you don't really have any room for error, so I'm using the white glue. Let's cover the whole joint area and then wrap the rope on there. Found the best way to hide the end is to tuck it inside facing towards the upright post, and then start wrapping on the outside post about 3 or 4 wraps towards the inside. That way you'll wrap over your own string and hold it down. And as far as your pattern of going around the upright and to the other cross beam and back over and all that stuff, you can make X's, you can go straight across, you can do a second string if you want, it really doesn't matter, just get it all wrapped up. And then when you're done, on your last wrap, you leave yourself a little loop there, stuff the end of your string through it once or twice, and then pull it tight. Trim off the tail. You can go ahead and burn the fuzzy parts off of it. Just don't do that if you have wet super glue because that stuff is flammable. Then you can put some more white glue on top of it and get a wet brush and smear it out until you no longer see any thick white booger stuff. Once that dries, it'll be rock solid, but you can go ahead and move on to the next one, so you don't need to wait for anything to dry before you do the next one. Just get them all wrapped up. So I went shopping. Oop, wrong video. No, seriously though, I did go shopping because I wanted some better ground cover. That's why this video is going to be late. Decided to pick up some non-sanded grout. This way I can add my own sand to it, and this one's color is earth. Thought that was kind of fitting since I'm using it for dirt. Now I've never done the grout myself. I've seen other people do it. They've had really good results. They've used different methods to get it to solidify. I've seen plain water, I've seen water and glue, I've seen alcohol, water and alcohol, everything in between. So we're going to try that out. We're going to do plain water, we're going to do alcohol, and we will do some Mod Podge mixed with glue. Just label our test sample things here. So now I know you are actually supposed to wet the surface first. I just want to see how this stuff is going to respond. So put it down. Wanted to do a couple of different things. I wanted to try it thin. I wanted to try it mixed with sand, and then just by itself thick cover, like if you're trying to make mud, and see how that works out. So the water and glue poured directly on top, just sort of, yeah, that didn't work. But if you mix it together, obviously I'd recommend mixing it together first. It does make a pretty nice slurry you could use for mud and stuff. Now I normally see people spraying the water or the alcohol through like a spray bottle. I don't have one, I'm just going to use the airbrush. The water, once it's soaked in, got a little bit spread out and muddy, but not too bad, that is better. Problem with the alcohol, at least out of an airbrush, is it evaporates before it even hits the stuff. And in the case of my airbrush, it's got a constant airstream, so you get close enough to actually get the alcohol on it, and it just blows the powder all over the place. So I ended up just dripping it straight on with a little dropper. Similar result to the water and glue, but it did soak in a lot faster, so that's something. Then we'll let that dry out and see what it looks like. So the glue one is very stuck to my mat. It definitely looks like mud. So if you're trying to make mud, you can mix water and glue with the powder and put it on like grout, really, and it makes mud. The alcohol one is not good at all. it didn't seem to do anything. The alcohol just evaporated and left the powder behind. And the straight water one looks like it's probably the best. There's nothing flaking off when I pound it on the tabletop there. Can't really scratch it off. So yeah, water seems to be the winner. So what we're going to do first is wet the surface with some water and glue, because that's going to make my other thing stick, because I'm not using just the grout powder. And spread that around with a brush. Try to keep the thickest application of your glue where you're going to want the thickest ground cover to be. Then I'm going to lightly sprinkle some sand over it. Grab the grout powder. I've got it in a little plastic shot glass here, and then I'm throwing it out with a brush. Same idea as the sand, I want to sprinkle it around. Now, if you take one of these chip brushes, it's got a little seam here on the side. If you can get a hold of that seam, you can just peel it right off. And underneath, you'll find a wooden block with all the bristles glued to it. You can take little chunks of those bristles, cut them in half or thirds, something like that, and just sort of sprinkle that around too. Trying to get like scattered straw or hay or whatever you call it. Just cut the little glue blob on the bottom off. You can make little piles of it. Just make sure that they're not all perfectly straight. Then I'm going to put just a little bit more dirt down, or grout powder, wherever it looks like I might need some more. And now I'm using the airbrush to hose it down with just straight water. I said if you don't have an airbrush or you just want to use a spray bottle, that's totally fine. I just have the airbrush next to me, so that's what I'm using. After spraying it down with the water, I decided that it needed a little bit more dirt, so I got some on one of these little wooden spoons, and I'm just putting little clumps around. It's like mud clods, basically. After your water has dried, you can go in with some clear coat or whatever. Basically, you want to glue this down more. You could use more water glue if you want, or spray-on sealer. I'm using hairspray. I really like hairspray for this kind of thing. This is just to make sure that your straw and sand and whatever else that may not be glued down actually gets glued down at this point. Also, this dollar store hairspray smells like the 90s. So to dress it up a little bit, I've got some scatter, just a few barrels and a couple of crates. Just sort of figure out where you want them. You don't really want them sitting on any kind of built up dirt or hay because they're not going to sit right, so try to find the flattest spots that make sense. And once you get that figured out, you can just put a little bit of super glue on the bottom and stick them right down. They'll stay as long as your players aren't super rough and they don't really have any reason to be reaching inside the gallows anyway. Yeah, we are making a gallows, so that means nooses. I don't want to do a proper noose because current political climate, don't even comment, it'll be deleted. But also, tying an actual noose would make such a gigantic knot that it would look really weird, so we're just going to do a little slip knot. Plus, I'm pretty sure that in the movie it actually wasn't a proper noose, it was just like a hastily tied chunky knot. So just tie your slip knot, put it around a pencil, cut the tail off, and then you can burn all of the stuff off the string, all the fuzz. You can size your noose however you want and then make it super solid that way, or you can leave it loose in case you do want to hang minis on it at some point. I'm going to leave mine loose because I don't want to put any minis hanging on it permanently. Sometimes a gallows is just a gallows, there's nothing there. But if it's left loose, you can still put it around a mini's neck and whatever you want to do. For securing these, I'm just going to use a little bit of super glue. I need the glue to dry really fast because strings this short tend to try to curl and twist, and it's just easier if they super glue. Wrap it around 2-3 times, cut the tail off, and glue it down. And you don't really have to tie it. You suppose you could, but this cord is so thick it would look really weird with giant knots, or giant for the scale anyway. And as long as it's hanging straight down, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. If it's not straight, you can put a little bit of glue on there and just sort of straighten it out. It should dry in a few seconds. And go ahead and put them around all of your things, however many you think you need. I'm trying to keep this pretty close to the movie, so I'm putting as many as it looked like there was people standing there. Kind of hard to tell from the screenshots. And like I said, if you left your strings and the knot itself a little bit loose, you can still put it on a mini if you want to. Just like that. That dude's gonna have a bad day. So go ahead and put on however many you want, and then we gotta paint the top of this thing. So my method here with this is to leave the top of the tower perfectly flat and just paint it black. That way, the tower could be theoretically as tall as you need it to be. Also, by leaving it flat, you can put more stuff on top of it, like the rest of the tower if you wanted to build that, or if you wanted to make like a little crenellations thing you can stack on it and say that's as tall as it is, or whatever you want to do really. When you do paint the top of your stuff like this, you're going to want to use a fan brush or flat, I don't know, whatever, the wide brushes, not the pointy ones. That way you can bring it right off the edge without going over the edge. Last thing to do is a little bit of black wash. I'm going to use the homemade black wash and spray it out of the airbrush because I just want to hit a few spots. I don't want it super heavy anywhere. A few spots on the tower. Definitely get the boxes and the barrels because they're just way too bright and perfectly brown. A few spots on the ropes maybe, just to kind of give it some age. I'm not sure if it was the lighting or the build itself, but in the movie this entire thing was very dark. And by leaving the back of this thing flat, you can then push it up against other terrain or the edge of your battle mat or anything else you want to push it up against, or just say that's the edge of the terrain or whatever. So have you figured out what movie this is from yet? No? Maybe this will help. Poor Will Scarlet, no more nooses left for him, he just got tied to a barrel. Alright, so the spotlight this week is We Talk D&D. Still a fairly new channel, so there's only about 8 videos or so far. But they are really good. There's some stuff for DMs, and there's some comedy with the D&D Meme of the Week. Definitely go over there, check out what Ryan's got going on. Like I said, not a lot of videos just yet, but it's a promising channel and he's still growing, so go check him out. Of course, as always, if you guys want to support the channel, you can do that over on Patreon. But of course, thank you for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.